Hello, my name is Giovanni Alvarado, and for this week's Spotlight interview, we will be interviewing DARA professor Alby Odum. It's good to have you here today.
Hey, glad to be here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So you're known to be an instructor here in the DARA program, but you're also a guitar instructor, a recording artist, performer, composer, orchestrator, and even a music industry consultant. What made you want to work here at USF and teach music?
Sure. Yeah, my life's been a journey. I mean, when I first came out of my undergrad, I just wanted to play guitar. So I was teaching guitar and then playing in a band, and a few years out of college, I signed a record deal with a Christian rock label in Nashville. And we toured from about early 2000s, really, that's where I spent my time, is learning the record industry with that. And then I, at the same time, was developing my recording chops, because I was getting to work with some pretty big producers in that scene, and I was getting to see how it was done. And so then I developed my recording stuff and started recording at local studios around Chicago. I built a studio in my home, and that kind of grew at the same time. And then the band started to slow down. I started producing a lot of records. In the midst of all that, I started a publishing company. And I think probably the main catalyst was Jeff Jaskowiak, the let's say founder of DARA, at least the
Yes.
champion of DARA, right? Me and him have been friends for a long time. In fact, I've had lots of guitar instructors, but he was really my first guitar instructor when I was in high school that elevated my level of playing.
Wow.
And so I've always had a bond with Jeff, and then we did some projects throughout the years too. Well, he was starting the DARA program here, and he invited me to come and look at the facility.
Wow.
He had all the gear in the room. The studio hadn't even been built yet, and he said, "I think we can start a really great school here." And I said, "That'd be great. I'm all in. I get to work with one of my best friends, and we both love music, and we've both been doing it, all of our lives, and we felt like we had something to offer. So that's what brought me here. Probably a little side note is that when I was working in studios, I would have interns come in, and they would work with me in the studio, and I really enjoyed that. And also I enjoyed teaching guitar. I'd been doing that privately since after my undergrad, for decades. So I thought this would be fun to come here and teach, and it has been. It's been great.
Wow, that sounds really inspiring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To do that, and like you said, it's like you guys both envisioned this.
Yeah,
and it
mostly
happened.
Jeff, and then I caught on with the vision, but yes.
Wow, that's really cool. You got your BA from Northern Illinois University in music performance.
Yes.
Your MS in music technology at IUPUI, Indianapolis, Indiana. What was it that drove you to just get through it all and just say, hey, I do want to teach music in the end?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I actually went to JJC to begin with.
Oh wow, yeah.
And studied music over there. They have they have a great music program they did back then, and I got done with that, and like I said, I just wanted to be a guitar player and like playing a band and go for the brass ring kind of thing, and it was actually my father-in-law said, "You need to get your education, you need to keep going."
Right.
He said, "What's it gonna hurt? You can still pursue your dream of getting better and writing songs and a band, but when you finish school off, man, I'm glad I did while I was young." So I went to Northern, and I finished off there and studied with some great professors. And in fact, at that moment in time, they didn't have any kind of recording school, but Northern had a recording studio, and I lived in that recording studio. I took every recording class I had. My degree is in performance, but if there would have been a recording degree, I probably would have got a recording degree because I messed with a lot of recording, like with microphones in the studio. I recorded a bunch of things. So I recorded the band I was playing at the time. I recorded with a lot of programming, like MIDI, with an old program called Cakewalk, like early MIDI sequencing and stuff. We're talking mid-90s here. So, and then I did. Worked with this program called Max, MSP, which is a programming language, but it's where you're programming sounds and stuff, but it's object oriented. And it was in its infancy, but you could create a sound, and then they had this room that was quadraphonic, like they had 4
Mm-hmm.
speakers in it, and you could like make sound go around, and
That
it
is
kind
so
of make you
awesome.
like, make you like dizzy and disoriented, and it was really cool. The amazing thing about that is that it's come back around, and later, I'm sure later in this interview we'll get there, but
Yeah.
Ableton now incorporates that program Max that
Yeah.
I worked on back then. It's part of their program. Like they bought that company, and now
Wow.
those two companies have merged. So I never thought it would come back around. Something I studied
Right.
that long ago, has come back around. So then, of course, when Jeff asked me to come here and teach, I didn't have my master's yet. So when he had mentioned it, he said, if you're going to come here, you need to get your master's. So I went to IUPUI and did their master's program. It's Master's in Music Technology, which was fantastic. I got to revisit all that stuff, a lot of the recording and sequencing and programming, but also like the Max, MSP, that kind of stuff, and also wrote some really long papers and just improved my general knowledge of music and technology. It's moving so fast.
Oh yeah.
You just got to stay on top of it.
Oh yeah. And it's a lot of perseverance. Like you had to have that perseverance to get through that.
You really do.
Wow.
Anything with technology, it's like if you don't plan on being a continuous student,
Yeah.
you're going to just get left behind right away. I had this mentor of mine. His name was George Tutko. He worked with the Rolling Stones. He did like 6 records with Rod Stewart. Like he was a pretty big deal,
Yeah.
And I would do projects with him, and he really encouraged me in a lot of ways. But just talking about technology, he passed a few years ago, and he had cancer, and he thought we thought he was going to come back out of it, but he didn't. But we said, is everything all right, George? And he goes, he's in the hospital, and so he says, and I wasn't there for this, but I heard this is what he said. He goes, I'm worried about falling behind in technology. Like I'm afraid I'm not going to know what the newest things are, and then I'm not going to be, viable and able to work when I get out of here, that of course would be true. He was brilliant. Whether he knew the newest plugin or the newest program or not, he would have been fine. But it is a continuous education in anything with technology, and that's what we're trying to do in the DARA program too. Is we're always buying new plugins. We're always updating all the new programs that come out. If there's an update or if there's something new, it's just trying to stay on the cutting edge all the time. And the students, they need that too, But then once they graduate from here, they're going to have to do the same thing. They to try to keep up with it, because you can get behind so fast,
That is so true.
Yeah.
So, some of your great music was featured in the movie titled Patience.
Oh yeah.
It was a thriller horror film that was released in May of 25th of 2016.
Right.
And just want to tell me more a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that film, first of all, before I forget, the name actually changed. It's actually called Cursed to Kill now.
Oh, wow.
And it's on Showtime. And it's been on Showtime. It's been kind of airing through 2018, and then I was just actually looking the other day. I saw that you could like rent it on like YouTube, and it might have been Netflix or Hulu or something like that. It's kind of doing the rounds now. That was a really fun movie to do because I got to use. I did some of the film scoring, but I also used like 5 DARA students.
Cool.
And we took scenes from it, and I said, see what you can do that, see what you can do that, and we talk about it and maybe revamp it or whatever. And I got to work with an excellent producer, director, writer. His name's Jason Sheedy. I actually produced his punk rock band when he was younger, and then he went on to be a filmmaker. And so he's out in Atlanta, and he had done that film, and then contacted me and said, hey, you want to do a film score for it? So I said, yeah, of course, love to. And doing a horror film is always fun because you get to do this weird sounds and everything. I purposely had my daughter play some violin because she doesn't know how to play violin. So
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
like making the worst sounds you can make and stuff, you know, because it's scary, you know, it sounds scary. And we did sampling, and we used a lot of Ableton for that. So that was that was actually, I don't do a whole lot of film scoring. That because the opportunity it's hard to find a film, you know, and it took probably a year and a half to do it. But one thing that I have been concentrating on probably for the last 10, 15 years is I have a publishing company. It's called GPS Songs. And what we do is we focus on what's called source music. So anytime you're watching a TV show and you walk into a bar, you hear the music playing, or a guy turns on the radio, or, you know, hits the jukebox, guys are shooting some pool or whatever, like, there's always music in every movie, and it's playing all, and that's called source music. And the source music has to be very authentic and on point. Like if you're in a country bar, it needs to be country music. If, you know, if you're in a hip hop place, it needs to be hip hop music. If it, you know, whatever, wherever you're at, it needs to be fitting for that. And so we've been building this company up for a long time, where we connect with artists, we represent their music, and then the people you want to talk to in film and TV are music supervisors. So you pitch this music to music supervisors, because they're the ones that decide whether the song goes in. So I think this past year we did, there's a show called The Path. We had a song in that. Blind Spot is a show on Fox, I think. I think Path is on Hulu. There's been a whole slew of them. I just can't remember. The one that everyone gets a laugh out of is we were in Sharknado 4. We had just a couple songs in there. A lot of some sci-fi, like Z Nation. I don't know if you're familiar with Z Nation, a zombie movie. We've had a few songs in that program. It's a pretty long list now. So and it keeps building as we make more contacts, and as we improve our library, it keeps going. You know, going. So that's been a real focus. Whether I'll do another film score or not, I don't know. The film score is a whole nother beast, because that's like when you're doing like the orchestra behind. You're doing the whole entire film. It's supposed to be, it's enhancing the scene, but it's not part of the scene. Where like what I do on a daily basis with GPS Songs is I'm pitching the source music is like part of the scene. You know, it's like it's kind of a different thing. So yeah, so it's really exciting. Yeah.
Nice. You kind of answered the next question I was going to ask you about. If you're going to be making more film score movies or music albums. You have some notable ones called Rock Tracks Volume 2, Rock Tracks Volume 5 and 3. But I really want to go on really discussing about, you know, the students here at our program. I'm like, it's pretty amazing what they've done. I hear the good news that your students will be touring local high schools performing original compositions. But the cool thing about this is that it's not your average ensemble. It's going to involve an electronic ensemble show. And you know, there's like 7 link computers, and they all are controlled with the lights and everything of that kind of stuff. What kind of what is more about this? Like, it's just amazing. It's so different. It's so into technology.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I really do feel like we're on the cutting edge with this kind of thing. With you know, some people will call it a laptop ensemble or a computer ensemble, and what we've done. Let me show you this here. Yeah. This is again, this is an Ableton product, and this particular thing, it has no sounds in it. It's just a MIDI controller is what it is, right? But it's called the push controller. And it's made by Ableton, which is the you know, here's Ableton. This is their little sign here, like that. So this plugs into the laptop, and really you're just triggering things from the laptop. Now, when Jeff and I, you know, was like developing like the coursework and the program for DARA, we were thinking Pro Tools is the industry standard. So most studios you go into Chicago, you'll find that Pro Tools is one of the main ways to record. But that's been around for a long time. Pro Tools has. Ableton is a newer company, and they have a completely different way of thinking of how to record. It really came out of, they first started as a sampler for like DJs and more like hip hop music, and then a lot of EDM, and then it developed into, now everybody's using it for their own thing. I mean, people use it for film scoring. It's all over the place. So this particular controller is really an instrument.
Yeah.
Okay, and in fact, Jeff and I have always considered it an instrument, but just for some validation, you know, Berkeley School of Music out in Boston, you know, it's a pretty respected school. They just decided that this was an instrument that you could major in. You know, so like if you were going to major in like guitar or like vocals or something, you can actually major in the push now, which we thought was pretty cool. So what's good about this, because someone might say, well, what's the difference between doing this and like just playing a keyboard? Like you're going to play, and you know, keyboard still has its place. I'm not dismissing keyboard, but you can play this like a keyboard. So I wish I had it plugged in with all the lights and stuff, but it gives you, some of the lights actually cue you like what key you're in and stuff. And if you play certain shapes on here, you can play major chord, minor chord, diminished chord, whatever, seventh chords.
That is amazing.
You can tell it to be in a key, so that it's almost like a piano without the black keys. Like if you just had the white keys, you'd be in the key of C. So you can tell this just be in the key of C, or just be in the key of A, or be in A flat minor, or be in some weird Mixolydian flat 7 aluminum can key. You know, I'm just making that up. But I mean, like it has all these different like weird keys in there, and you can just tell it be in that key, and then it does that. But not only that, then you can flip over, and it can be drums. So then people will finger drum. You know, so all this thing can become a drum, or you can program what's called a sequence in it to do the drums for you, and you can just add stuff to it. Then you can also manipulate the sound. So let's say you're holding a sound. There's all these encoders up here. So like if you're holding a sound and you're turning this, you know, you can get like something to swell or morph into something else, or become active or arpeggiate or whatever. So you have. That's why this is really an instrument, and it's a lot. It's a lot of different instruments, you know. And probably the last thing is to say you can make a button be any sound you want it to. So like if I said let's say I record myself coughing, you know, and I put it on that button every time I hit the button.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. So you can just trigger sounds too. So that's how it becomes a sampler, and that was. You know, each one of these things is appealing to different people, and that's what happens with our students too. You know, sometimes some students would be like, "Oh, I just want to play like a piano, or I want a finger on it, like a drum," you know. Or some guys would, "I want to sample like a EDM or a hip hop kind of thing and sample stuff in." And there's been some really great projects. We had one last year. A guy took all sounds from social media, like the startup of your computer and your little ringtones and stuff, and he made a whole song out of just that. It was a really
using this device?
Just using this, yeah. Wow. So he put like samples in there and then played things and like that was a really cool. Neat program. So this is the Ableton Push. So what we do is right now in our ensemble for this year, we have 5 guys playing these. And they're on stands like this, so they play, and it goes back to it does hook to the laptop. It has to hook to the laptop for all the sounds, because all the sounds are in the laptop. But it was my intention with the ensemble was I didn't want people to see the laptop as much. I didn't want it to be the emphasis, because I don't know if you've ever gone to see like a laptop orchestra or something. It's like their faces are down in the laptop and they're
all the time,
they're like buried in it. I wanted it to be more like when you go to a show, to a rock concert or something, where you see people are playing and are interacting, and you know, I want it to be like a performance. So so I think we've really accomplished that. So we have 5 guys playing these, but everything is tied together through a MIDI time clock. So what that means is this: all the laptops are in sync together, meaning the BPM. So like if you're at 100, and all the computers are doing that same thing, and all you had to do is turn this knob. If I slowed it down to 60 BPM, all the other laptops will go slower. So if you have like a guy who's maybe they're holding like an arpeggio and it's going do 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 do, and you slow it down and do 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 do, and it'll stay perfectly in sync with everybody. Everybody's perfectly in sync.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So the other thing is there's 5 guys playing these, and then the other 2, one goes to lights and one goes to video, and we're running lights and video from Ableton, and that's all in sync. So our light show is perfectly in sync and timing with the music then. So
it's amazing. I did get to see a video on YouTube. It was called From Chaos the calm.
Oh yeah. I like that
And
one.
it had I can't remember exactly by memory, but I think there was like 4 or 5 students that were there playing, and 3 of them were using the Ableton, and the lighting,
Yeah.
everything, and they were so in sync.
Yes.
It was almost like enchanting to hear the synchronicity of the music and the sound and
Oh, thank you.
how they play. It was amazing, and
Yeah.
they're talented. And I mean, this is kind of in a way the music of the future, if you think about it, because it's different,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's amazing. And the last piece I want to ask is there any advice you would like to give for future DARA students or for people that are just into music
Yeah,
out there?
sure,
Mm-hmm.
sure. Well, one thing that we always say here at the school is, music's not an easy path. There's not like just, you graduate from here and there's some building that just hires a bunch of, people that do this and
Mm-hmm.
musicians and technicians and all that stuff. So, I think that without getting too long-winded, we have a podcast. It's called Musician, Technician, Entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we put that podcast together is because Jeff and I feel like the foundation of the 21st century musician
Mm-hmm.
is not just getting really good at one instrument.
Mm-hmm.
It's being a musician. You still need to be good. You still need
Right.
to write great songs. All that
Right.
stuff needs to be in place. But you need to be a technician, meaning
Mm-hmm.
you need to be understand technology.
Okay.
And whatever that means. That could mean how you record something. It could be using this. It could be film scores, not using an orchestra, but being able to MIDI program stuff. But that's the technician. So you got the musician, technician, and the last one is the entrepreneur.
Okay.
And that's just being savvy in business, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that you can also major in our program. Is you can emphasize like, oh, I want to go more business way, I want to go more technician, like an audio engineer,
Right,
or I want to
right.
really focus more on my musicianship. But you still take all the
Right.
classes
To understand it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're well-rounded in all those things, whether you come here or not, and you're thinking like that, like I need to be a musician, I need to keep up with the tech, and also think like an entrepreneur, like whether it be you starting your own business or finding a new technology that you can enhance or whatever it is, that you can survive, and thrive. I shouldn't just say survive, because the idea is to thrive. And as a 21st century musician,
Yes.
it's a little different. So I think everyone just needs to dream big and really go after it. And as long as they're bitten by this music thing and they really believe it,
Yes.
and they want to go for it, they'll be just fine. So.
Very inspiring.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you, Ju. Yeah.
This wraps up this week's Spotlight interview. Thank you.